Hello friends, welcome to my channel SushantChessWise. Today we are going to do a game study and we will see why it is said that a rook controlling the open file can win the game single-handedly. Let's start with the example quickly. The game went d4, d5, e3. Generally players prefer the Cole system. They go for this move order. Next they play nf3 and then pd3. Black often goes c5, which is very popular because dc would allow e5 here. So c3, white protects d4 and sometimes he wants dc when he can support c5 with b4. So black played e6. To nc6 there could be dc and then after e5 b4. So white went bd3 nc6. The reason being white is avoiding nf3 is that he went with the move f4. This is so called the stonewall attack. White tries to build a wall with his pawns d4, f4. But what has happened? The square e4 has become weak and the c1 bishop has become bad. So this we can say is like a predetermined plan by white, which cannot be that great. Black went nf6, just develops. Here nf3 is the standard way, but white went with the move nd2, which I think is somewhat inferior, and black immediately sets a trap. He goes with qc7. See, he already has a threat which white actually ignored and he just played the most obvious ngf3. So what is the threat here? He wants to use the c file and it's look like cd nb4 bb1 is nothing because next move will be a3. The knight will be driven away, right? But that is what happened in the game. Do try to figure out what happened. If white would have known the consequences, maybe I think after cd the best is e takes d4, sacrificing f4 and trying to get control of e5. But this we can say in hindsight, because see, one would feel it's not that great to give up f4, but see, in fact it gives open file and some very good control of the important squares. See, and c4 comes, queen moves back, knight jumps to e5, and after bd6 queen e2, white overprotects the strong point e5, and after bishop takes, pawn takes, knight d7, black tries to pressurize as much but comes bishop f4. Now once again overprotecting the point on e5, to which see the move f6 happens to be blunder, because if f6 here, then white has a combination with ef, queen f4, fg. See, after rook g8 there is queen e6 check, and you can make out that white is almost winning over there. So we can say that black won't play the move f6 here. He may go nc5, but we see that there is a deadly compensation for the pawn. The c8 bishop is bad, and after nc5 nd3 we can have an opposite colored bishop position also in future. Meanwhile, white has some initiative. So this is what the best line we could say was, beginning with e takes d4. Anyways, white went c takes d4 in the game, which turns out terribly after nb4, bb1 and bd7. See, normally white must have thought that next move a3 I drive the knight, right? And which is what he did here. But black had foreseen the move rook c8. See, the rook controls the open file. The knight is heading to c2 now. The main point is, see, if a takes b4, there is qc1, rook a7, qb2. Not only see, black is threatening rook c1 here, which is quite dangerous. But you can see that b4 will fall now and white's position will become really bad. Black's pieces are active. Bishop can go to b5. Bishop b4 is coming to castle, especially there can be bb5 followed by bb4, bb5 followed by ba6, trapping the a7 rook maybe, and that position is really bad for white. So white played castle here, and what would you play as black? Most players suggest the move nc2 instantly, but first black does bb5, and a strong intermezzo we can say, because see, now if a takes b4, then bishop f1, and after taking on f1, c1 falls, black becomes an exchange up, b4 is weak, qb2 is coming up, so this is a winning position for black. So white had to go rook e1, and now the consequence of the move which started with nb4. See, the knight jumps to c2, bc2, qc2, almost forced to take on c2, and after rook c2, see, the rook dominates the file, rook is on the 7th rank. This factor itself is very good, but generally we need several factors, at least one more weakness. That is where the principle of double weakness comes in. We see black has some other pluses. Let's see what and how to free his queen side here, right? So white goes h3 first, I think, which is already a mistake. He stopped ng4, but that was not required maybe. bd6 and he goes nb1. See, the knight is heading to c3 and then he can free the bishop and then get rook c1. ne4, good move, stopping nc3, and now see nf d2 challenging the knight. Black finds another good move, bd3. The square e4 is like an outpost, but it's not an outpost. Outpost is square on an open file supported by a pawn, but e4 here is a strong square, a square which cannot be attacked by enemy pawns. So after knight e4, be4, white had planned this nd2. White had planned this nd2. He wants to take the bishop here and see, maybe he can do knight b3 if required, but firstly it looks like he threatens e4. Do note that g2 was threatened, so white couldn't play b4 and all. Now comes kd7. Black simply ignores n into e4 threat because he is going to dominate the c file. After knight e4, de4, he thought that he already has another advantage now. The pawn went to e4, e3 is fixed, means the c1 bishop has become a bad bishop. So several pluses in the endgame. Rook on 7th rank, both rooks dominating the c file. The king is more centralized and the good bishop versus bad bishop position. So multiple advantages, means this position is already winning for black. Now rook b1, trying for b4 of course. So rook c8 instantly, b4. What should black do before white gets bb2 rook c1? In fact, even that endgame is very bad. King can come to c6, b5, but here black did rook 8 c3. Total domination. See, now the move bb2 loses to rook b3, ba1, rook a3. Pawn is lost on a3, e1 is tied down. Maybe the pawn on b4 will also be lost soon. Do note that there is the massive threat of rook a2, which would win on the spot. Those who are not aware of the power of double rooks on the 7th rank, you can check out my lessons on the Mastering the Rook series. So this is sort of continuation of those lessons. So white went here with king f1. He wants to protect the e2 square so that after bb2 rook b3 he has re2. So see, king c6, bb2, rb3, re2. Black had calculated this perhaps, so he takes and goes kb5. The endgame is almost winning because the king can't come to c2 because of the hanging pawn on e3, which means the position of the b1 rook is really bad now. The king timely moved to b5. Now the white rook cannot free itself with rook c1 check, means it's game over. kd2, king a4, king e2, white is compelled to wait and it is black to play and win here. What would you do as black? It is said that once the position becomes winning, we tie down the enemy pieces. Then all we do is alter the pawn structure, and here see, black breaks with the move a5. Generally it is achieved by such a pawn break. The point is that after b takes a, bishop a3, and see the b2 bishop is lost. It means b4 has to be given up. White goes kf2, just waiting, ab, and the good move king b4, not allowing rook a1 check, means the b2 bishop is permanently pinned. King e2, kb5, kd2. I hope you must have figured out by now. After being up in material, we just want trade-off pieces. So black goes bishop a3, now kc2 forced, and see, he just chops off everything. I have done a series on exchanging. On exchanging chapter, it shows what are the principles of exchanging, when and how should one exchange. When we are up in material, we should exchange the pieces. This is one of the factors. And now see, after kc4, the only move was kc2. White didn't do that because he must have thought that the b pawn would promote now, but that was the only chance to prolong. See, there comes b5, g4, b4, g5. You must be knowing the technique. The outside passer is given up to collect pawns on the other side. So here comes b3 check, kb2, kd3, kb3, ke3, and after kc4, king f2, the e pawn queens. See, d5, pawn takes, king takes, and e3. The pawn promotes to queen. Black would have won very easily. White anyways went with the move g4 straight away. There came kd3, g5, king e3, and now see next move kf2 followed by e3 to e1. So and black won the game since white decided to resign over here. There is nothing left. So we saw how the several advantages were accumulated, and the main one started with the rook controlling the open file and then the 7th rank. I hope you are finding these lessons useful and instructive. Do let me know in the comments below. Thanks for your time.